Grace Kids. My name is Macy and I am the intern at Olathe this summer. I'm so glad that you're joining us online today. If you've been with us the past couple weeks, you know that we're in our 4th week of the Lookout series. We've talked about what it means to be a welcomer, a prayer, and a goer. What's a welcomer? Well, a welcomer is someone who lets people into their home and makes them feel welcome wherever they're at, particularly strangers or people who are maybe unfamiliar with the area or just need a friend. What's a prayer? Well, a prayer is someone who prays for people, specifically people who don't know the Lord, and pray that people will be able to hear the gospel and come to know Jesus. And then finally, what's a goer? Well, we've talked about a goer is someone who goes to unreached people groups and tells people about the gospel who've never heard about Jesus. And we've talked about a couple of people that we support who go do that. For example, Tim and Jill Owens, who are in Thailand. They've been there for over 30 years teaching the Thai people about who Jesus is. The next word that we're going to talk about is related to going, but it's called being a sender is the word. It's far better to be sent somewhere rather than just go. For example, have you ever just gone to the grocery store? Well, if you just go to the grocery store, you don't really have a mission or a direction for what you're supposed to do. But if your mom sends you to the grocery store, most likely she'll give you directions for what you're supposed to get. Maybe she'll even give you some money to help you get what you need to get. And overall, it'll just help you to feel supported and know what you're supposed to do while you're there. And it's the same thing with people that we send overseas or other areas who are teaching people about Jesus. It's far better to be sent and to have support than to just go without anyone else supporting you. So where in the Bible do we see people being sent? Well, one example in the Bible is at the start of Paul's ministry when he and Barnabas were part of a church in the city of Antioch. It's in modern-day Turkey. And in Acts 13, they were with several other leaders who were fasting and praying. And verse 2 tells us that one day, as these men were worshiping the Lord and fasting, the Holy Spirit said, "Appoint Barnabas and Saul for the special work to which I have called them." So God calls these leaders in the church of Antioch to send Saul and Barnabas and tell them where they need to go. Can you imagine that? Saul and Barnabas were their friends and probably really liked working together at that church. It would have been hard and maybe sad to send them away. But here's what the church did. So after more fasting and praying, the men laid their hands on them and sent them on their way. The Antioch church sent Paul and Barnabas on their first missionary journey. On that journey, Paul and Barnabas started several churches and came back and reported about it to the church in Antioch. Why do you think it's so important to be sent? Well, let's read this together and you tell me. But how can they call on him to save them unless they believe in him? And how can they believe in him if they have never heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them? And how will anyone go and tell them without being sent? That is why scriptures say, "How beautiful are the feet of messengers who bring good news." Romans 10, verses 14 through 15. You can't be saved unless you believe in what Jesus did, but you can't believe if you've never heard about Jesus. But you have to have someone tell you in order to hear and believe it, and someone has to go in order to tell people who haven't heard. And how will someone go unless they're sent? So sending is super, super important. What kind of support do you think a sender can give? Talk with your family and try to think of at least 2 ways that senders can support goers. Some ways that senders can support goers is senders can financially support them. Like when you go to a new country, you probably need to spend most of your time learning the language and the culture, and you don't really have time to get money or to have a job. And another way that senders can support goers is by supporting them in prayer. Goers are always trying to help people in darkness to know who Jesus is, and the devil does not like that. And so there's a lot of different struggles that missionaries can go through that they need prayer and support from people back home. And then finally, another way is senders can encourage goers by just sending them emails or letters, or just letting them know that they're thinking of them and that they're still supporting them even though they're miles away and in a completely unknown and different country. For us to proclaim God's greatness, like our memory verse says, we need to look out towards others. Right now, you can welcome them into your house. We can pray for unreached people groups. We can go to our friends and neighbors that don't know Jesus now and maybe go to an unreached people group in the future. And since you are a part of Grace, we are senders because we support the goers. And one last thing, if you haven't already signed up for elementary camp, don't forget to sign up for that, and we would love to see you there.